Well, hello, everyone. Howdy, howdy. This is Angela Hooper-Menifield with Menifield and Associates, and also creator of the Supervisor Academy and Symposium. So today is Friday. I'm sorry, November 20. Wow, the last day of the week, but also the last Friday before many of us will have an opportunity to take off a little bit next week. So first, let me just acknowledge that in a lot of places over the last 24 hours, things have changed drastically. If you live in the New York, New Jersey area, like I do, I'm sure you have seen where the shutdowns have become more and more pervasive. Um, and what is actually happening in a lot of places is like extended
Hello, everyone.
shutdowns. Oops,
Howdy,
excuse me.
howdy.
And so here in Jersey, I live in Newark. Some of you may have seen that while the state's average for positive tests and COVID was around 3%, in Newark, we were at 20. I think that was yesterday. And then today we got notification of a 10-day lockdown. And of course, I just talked to a friend of mine or peer in Texas. Things are shutting down there. So it's just a lot of things are happening right now. So we just want to be cognizant of that. Again, I'm not here to debate whether that should or should not happen. I think you guys know me well enough to know nobody has to tell me to stay in a house. I do it because I do it. But anyway, so just want to be cognizant of that and just everybody stay safe. Just do what you can to stop the spread and slow down the curve, right? So, okay. So in today's HR moments, because, we like to get together and talk about human resources from the lens or the perspective of the supervisor. Our objective is, again, we help create better leaders, better managers, and better supervisors. But what we know is a lot of us, get thrown into the fire, as they say, and we're not ready. So try to give some tips, advice, guidance to help you guys. So today I read a really good article. And, part of growth is, again, reading books, reading articles, and gleaning what you can from them to add to the good things you're already doing. And so this was a really good article about one-to-ones. And one of the things that I teach often when I teach performance management training is the fact that one-to-ones are necessary, right? So as a supervisor or a manager, it is really important that you sit down with your team members. So not just your team, but the team members as individuals, and have conversation with them. Often in work environments, and I've experienced this personally, and I have been guilty of this personally. So I'm not throwing the rock, right, and hiding my hand. But what we know is sometimes the only time we meet with people is either when something's wrong or because we have to, because it's performance appraisal time, right? And so what I encourage people to do is to meet regularly. Now, there's different types of meetings, right? So you can meet, I would say, no less than quarterly for performance conversations, unless there's something that needs your immediate attention. But in addition to that, you should regularly touch bases with your team members. Check the pulse. You've seen the saying, like, which way is the wind blowing, right? I used to jokingly, my boss and I used to say too, one of the great reasons to sit down and meet with your team is because that's how you find out all the things they've made up that isn't true, right? Based on, gossip and nonsense. And so you would never know the stories or the things sometimes that even people make up in their minds. So there's a lot of reasons. But, one of the things we've talked about before is also the fact that, it's been said, and there's a lot of validity to it, right? People don't quit jobs, they quit supervisors. And sometimes some of that is about there's no connection. So see, these one-to-one sessions also can help us build a connection with our team. So some of you may be wondering, okay, so Angela, you've convinced me, right? I need to meet with my team. I need to have a one-to-one and talk to them. So one of the things that we should always do in some of these sessions, and again, they can be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. I think you need to have some degree of frequency. But what are some reasons why this is important is studies show, and whether this is from HR professionals and perhaps they're getting it from exit interviews or employee engagement surveys, is that employees want an opportunity to talk about opportunities and growth. What's their trajectory? What does my career plan look like? And so this is something else that can happen in a one-to-one. So I won't go into all the great topics that were in this article, but I'd at least like to map out, and I read it at Lattice, Lattice. I'm not sure what that stands for. It must be the name of the company, but it's lattice.com. And so there were categories of questions that they said we should discuss. So of course there's engagement and morale, right? Again, we need to know how engaged they are and how they feel about the work. Then there's collaboration and teamwork type questions. Growth questions, again, people want to grow, and so they want to know that there's an opportunity. Then of course, manager feedback. If you're the manager or supervisor, we need feedback too. So often we're the ones giving feedback that we're not putting ourselves in the position to receive it. And so we need to ask the right questions. Then there's productivity questions, and then employee one-on-one questions. Now, the reason why these types of questions are important also is because, again, how else would we know the answers to them? And people are not naturally going to walk into our office as the supervisor and volunteer these types of things. Now, here's what else I know. Often as supervisors, we will use phrases and say things like, well, I have an open door policy, so my team can come and talk to me anytime about anything. I am here to tell you again, I don't feel that exists. If the expectation is for the person, the employee, to come, then the door is not really open. Like, we have to initiate some of these conversations and create a pattern of belief that we really want to hear the answers, because that's when we really begin to get the truth. So I'm not, again, going to go into all the questions, but I'm going to pick a few out of each category. So for instance, under engagement and morale, we can ask questions like, how are you feeling, right? How are you feeling? Like, that tells you how they feel about a lot of things. And it's not leading. So it wouldn't be like, how are you feeling about your coworkers? Or how are you feeling about the project? Because that's leading questions. And as a coach, that's one of the things we have to be trained on. And really, this is you coaching through this session as a supervisor. So you don't ask leading questions, but you ask open-ended, thought-provoking questions. So how are you feeling? You may also want to know do they feel that they're able to disconnect maybe from work? Because that could be an indicator that they're stressed or maybe taking too much work home with them. And oftentimes supervisors are not aware of how burdened and overworked people can feel. When it comes to collaboration, you could ask them questions of things like, are there some on the team that you wish you had more of a connection with? Now, that's a positive way of figuring out, maybe, is there someone that they maybe are not, meshing with? Maybe they feel like they bump heads, there's some misunderstandings, and you can learn about that. Growth-wise questions like, are there new skills that you would like to learn? One of my favorite questions I used to like to ask was, let's talk about that thing you really do well, and would you like to do more of it? Because I'm a firm believer in finding ways to make people experts in the things that they're really good at. Because if a person can love to do what it is they're doing, they'll do more of it and they'll do it better. What part of the business would you like to learn more about, right? Maybe there's some aspects they haven't been exposed to, and that will help me to see what their interests are in. And then I can give them exposure. The manager feedback questions are things like, what can I do to make your life easier? I think it's John Maxwell in one of his books, he says that he would ask his team, what are some of the things that keep you up at night? Right? So that's helping us see, maybe, is there something we could do? Another one I used to love to ask is if I could give you a mulligan. And for those of you who I believe this is more of a golf term, I'm not a golfer. I've dabbled at pretending like I could play and swung some clubs, but it's a do-over, right? So if I could give you a mulligan, where would you take it? That's a great question I like because it helps me to see as the manager or the supervisor, what is that regret that they have, or what might be something that's holding them back? Oftentimes, when I ask this question, I have found that people are holding on to things that I've forgotten about. So, like, they thought it was the worst thing ever. It put their position in jeopardy. We never see them the same way again. And I'm like, oh, did that happen? Oh, yeah, I guess it did. Like, it was such a relief for them to hear that this wasn't a game changer for me. And so I would have never known that had I not asked that question. You could just in general, is there any feedback you'd like to share? Again, open-ended, because feedback is positive and sometimes it's constructive. I think it's always good if it's given with the intent to make things better. As it comes to productivity, are there some challenges? Are there some things that are, limiting your ability to accomplish the things you want to accomplish? What are some roadblocks I can help you with, right? So again, not to just give you, 1,000 questions, but your team, you should. And if you don't, then this is a great opportunity to get to know them. Um, you know, but as you think about some of the things that's happening in your industry, just filmed our next podcast episode yesterday. And one of the articles we talked about was an article I read earlier in the week as well. And it was talking about how HR professionals say that, 2020 has been their most stressful year. Well, guess what? More than HR professionals feel that way. So are we, especially in this season, and I started the episode or today's HR moment, just talking about some of the new recent activities across the country as it pertains to 10-day quarantine periods and stay at home requirements that people are struggling with. People are stressed. Schools are closing again. Of course, in some places, people are picketing, but nonetheless, all of these things are stressful. So if you're not having a one-to-one with your team and you haven't been doing that, even though you may be working virtually, I want to encourage all of my supervisors, all of my managers, all of my leaders, touch your people, right? And of course, I'm doing touch like this, but I don't mean physical touch. I mean, really let them know you care. And that could be a 15, 20-minute call, but touch them. Have a one-to-one. Ask, just check on them. And again, I've given you some questions, some from the article, some from my experience that I think could really help you help them during this season that I would consider to be very trying for many of us. So again, I hope this has helped you to some degree. This is our HR moment, human resource moment, for our supervisors, leaders, managers, and business owners. My name is Angela Hooper-Menifield. It has been my pleasure to jump on this video with you today. We'll be back on Monday, but until then, take care, and please, 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 everybody, stay safe. And don't forget, reach out and connect with your team. A lot of people, I will just say this last thing, because they are trying to be compliant with what the requirements and things are. They're alone right now, and they will be alone next week. And during holiday seasons, depression, it gets dark earlier. This is the season, right? And so let's just check on people, right? I think that's just the right thing to do. So check on your team. If you need any help or guidance, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye.